I took a week off from bringing my newsletter to you, and over the last 2 weeks you can sense a kind of shift in the national conversation concerning the coronavirus and what people are thinking. And it's a shift from a kind of lockdown mentality to what I like to call a journey to reopen. If it was a space shuttle, then the episodes would be entitled Preparations for Reentry. Our governor, Doug Ducey, designated May 15th as the time for this to be rolled out. Also, the Arizona Attorney General released a clarification stating that attending church services is an essential service. I've called this a journey to reopen, and each part of this, I believe, conveys something important. The goal is the church regathering in the complete sense of assembling together, maintaining necessary health concerns, continuing to social distance, and to do our part to keep flattening the curve that we've heard a lot about. The word journey describes that this will not be achieved overnight, but there will be a phased quality to this, and it will involve a process. The best imagery I can give you to this challenge is if you were to give me and another brother or sister a sledgehammer, we could probably knock something down overnight. It doesn't take as much skill to do that, but if you're trying to rebuild something, then it takes skill, it takes time, and it's something that cannot be done solo or alone. And this is why the guiding verse for this time is Proverbs chapter 24, verses 3 and 4, that says, "By wisdom a house is built. Through understanding it is established, and through knowledge its rooms are filled with rare and beautiful treasures." Each part of that is important. Wisdom builds the house. Understanding establishes it, and knowledge fills it to its designed purpose and function. And one of the facts of history is that the church has always prevailed during seasons of struggle, meeting each season with faith, with optimism, and with an overcoming attitude. And so with all of this in mind, we're happy to announce that we will be resuming our worship services together beginning Sunday, May the 17th. Now, we will be doing this while following at the same time a number of common sense health and safety guidelines that you should be aware of. We will not be having a nursery. There will be no children's church or children's Sunday school provided during this season of reopening. We will not be passing the offering plates. Instead, there will be alternative giving means that will be made available throughout the building. If you're someone who has traveled to Arizona from a coronavirus hit area, or you have come in contact with someone with the COVID-19 virus in the past 2 weeks, we would ask you, please do not attend these services, but stay at home and self-quarantine. If you are currently sick or you have a fever, don't come. If you are elderly or if you are those with existing illnesses that put you in the category of at risk or being greater risk, we want to encourage you to continue to join with us online instead of in person. We recommend also that you don't come at the last minute or late, as there will be some safety screenings as you enter the building. There will be 3 entry areas into the building. This will require each person to sanitize their hands as they enter the building. There will be temperature screening attenders who will be present at these entry points. The ushers will be wearing gloves and masks, and so we will be practicing some of the CDC recommendations that we originally put in place, such as refraining from handshaking and hugging and that kind of personal contact. Also, we will be seated by families as much as is possible, but with some distancing between the seats and between the aisles. When you attend, you may prefer to wear a mask, and that is acceptable, and it is highly recommended for some people as well. And I understand that some of you may not be comfortable with meeting at this time, and so we encourage you to, and we recommend that you continue to join with us, to gather with us, as you have been doing for a couple of months now in our online services. And if any of these health guidelines or concerns trouble you, if you have objections to sanitizing, to being screened, or distancing, then we simply would prefer that you don't attend in person until these restrictions can be removed safely. We are very, very glad for the technology that has allowed us to continue to gather as the Door Church and to worship and to hear from God. In stressful times, I believe these services have been outstanding. We've been able to worship, we've been able to hear from God, and we're glad for that. But at the same time, we do look forward to be able to see you in person and to meet you in person while continuing to social distance. So before I close, let me just talk about a few attitudes that I believe we need to take into consideration. You know, people have all kinds of different opinions. Someone has said that opinions are like armpits. Everyone has them, and some smell better than others. And so this is why you can take people who can look at the same set of circumstances, the same situation, and have 2 different opinions. We recognize this. I believe all of us need to show grace to one another in this regard. And we, when all is said and done, believe that you need to hear from God. You need to have your own convictions that will allow you to continue to worship in freedom and in safety and in a way that glorifies God. There's another attitude. There are real psychological hurdles or obstacles to regathering. That's why we feel it is wise at this time to err on the side of caution as we move forward. We haven't done this lightly. We have been studying this in great detail. We're spending nearly $6,000 next week to clean and to sanitize all of the carpets, all of the chairs, and we also have the ability to sanitize all of the chairs in between every service. While we have not been meeting at the building, the cleaning staff has continued to work. They've continued to address things that maybe previously they hadn't had time. And so we are taking real steps, real precautions to do this and to regather in a way that will meet all of these different concerns. And finally, some of the skills, some of the lessons that we have learned during this season are not just going to disappear. They don't have an expiration date to them, but instead, I believe that many of them are going to be incorporated into our timeless challenge to reach people with the gospel and to make disciples. Finally, let me tell you one other thing about crisis. You learn a lot about people during times of crisis, who they really are. Not the person they want you to think, but the person they really are. The way they think, their faith or the lack thereof. You learn about their resiliency. Last week, for instance, New York's Governor Andrew Cuomo was asked during a press briefing why the coronavirus infection rate was slowing in the state of New York. And Governor Cuomo said, the number is down because we brought the number down. And then he went on to say, God did not do that. Faith did not do that. Destiny did not do that. A lot of pain and suffering did that. Now, to be clear about this, Governor Cuomo was not asked about God. He wasn't asked about prayer. It was one of those you are here moments where you learned about who he really was. And to look back at the last 8 weeks, and especially what they went through in New York City and in the state of New York, and to dismiss God as being irrelevant is not only unwise, but it's also completely unnecessary. Because acknowledging God and acknowledging His providence has been a common theme throughout our nation's history, whether through declaring solemn days of prayer and fasting in the midst of a crisis, or declaring a day of thanksgiving after the crisis has passed. But it seems that today it's more common for officials to just ignore God and any role that He might play in our world. And I would simply say, as a pastor, that attitude is an incorrect one, because whether we live or die, whether we breathe or not, is the result of God's grace. And He is our refuge. He is our strength. He is a very present help in time of trouble. And there's a world of difference between leaving God unmentioned and then outright denying that He deserves any credit at all for anything, from miraculous intervention to strengthening some of the medical professionals that have stepped up so greatly in this time of crisis, or to acknowledging that He gave people the minds and the ability to develop therapies and technologies that would ultimately help and benefit people. And so in closing, I want to say again, God bless you. We're going to meet again next week at this time, and I'll be able to bring you further information. But for now, you know as much as I do. And I'm glad we serve the God who knows all things, who knows the beginning from the end, who knows your heart, who knows your need, and most of all, He cares about you. God bless each of you.